The following program is a special presentation of the Big Ten Network, produced in association with the University of Wisconsin.
Let's face it, we'd all love to find that million-dollar idea, the one that will make us financially comfortable for the rest of our lives. Up next, we'll meet a UW-Madison MBA grad who actually did just that, and it started with a few scribbles on a restaurant napkin. We'll meet him next. Stay with us. In 1995, in a small New York City Chinese noodle restaurant, a multi-million-dollar idea was conceived. With a business plan scribbled on a napkin and money scraped together from friends and family, Noodles Company was born. Aaron Kennedy envisioned a national trend towards fresh, fast food, or fresh food fast, and created a business with more than 150 franchises now. You might say that is using your noodle. I'm sure you've heard that before. Yeah. Aaron Kennedy joins us today. Aaron, thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Great having me.
So here's the question, starting it out. Did the noodles idea make you an entrepreneur, or were you an entrepreneur waiting for the noodles idea?
I guess from my perspective, I was looking for an opportunity to really take full advantage of this skill set I felt I had inside me. And I had a need. My wife was living in Boulder, Colorado, and I was living in New York City because of professional reasons. And my desire was to, be living in Boulder with her and gainfully employed. Mm-hmm. So I sort of had my mind was open to being an entrepreneur.
Gotcha.
And then the idea hit me like a lightning bolt.
When the idea hit you, did you envision a Noodles Company restaurant or many Noodles Company restaurants? Was it an exportable idea from the get-go?
Absolutely. I had this little sort of elevator speech, as you say, in business school or whatever. It's my goal was to prove the validity of the global noodle shop concept, which nobody had ever really opened a global noodle shop before.
Sounds like an MBA project.
See, there you go. Yeah. Prove the validity of it, maximize early stage value. That's what I told our investors by building and opening 20 to 40 restaurants across 4 to 5 cities within 5 to 7 years. And so that was my little speech.
And you were a farm kid, right? You didn't have a lot of wealthy friends to go to. You raised $250,000 for the first store, reaching out to over 20 or 30 folks, and you probably got some rejections as well.
Yeah, I sent the business plan to 30 friends. I told them all, don't invest more than you can afford to lose, because that's just too much pressure coming out of the gate. 23 of the 30 sent checks, some as small as like $500, and I think the biggest one was $50,000 from my father-in-law. So that was some. There's some pressure. Some pressure, yeah. So at that time, to me, $50,000 seemed like the world to me, and so that was an important investment.
Were there some sleepless nights?
Absolutely, but you know what? When I think back on it, and even when I was, kind of in those, this first couple of years were extremely difficult. Just trying to get all of the pieces, the service levels, the food quality, the price structure for the menu, and all those pieces sort of moved to optimal. We almost didn't make it. So there were sleepless nights from a financial standpoint, like taking out a second mortgage on our house. I took out, I think, 7 credit cards. The 8th credit card, I wrote those pre-approved credit card things again. The 8th one I sent back in. They sent a letter back that said, Mr. Kennedy, we've determined that you have sufficient credit available to you at this point. In other words, there's no way in heck we're going to give you a loan. So.
But you weren't an amateur. You had punched your ticket with a lot of big brands. Pepsi, Kraft, Oscar Mayer. You worked on the Lunchables rollout.
Right.
How did that big brand experience inform your entrepreneurial move?
It was so valuable to have worked in a corporate environment in the food business. So I kind of put those two things together. A corporate environment was really helpful because you got to learn sort of the terminology of, finance and of human resources and, marketing and those aspects. Even though I was working in marketing research at Oscar Mayer and brand marketing at Pepsi, I got to understand how a big corporation worked and how the language went and all that sort of thing. Working in the food industry gave me contacts and access to people that could help me, downstream, connect me with the right people to help get the restaurant business off the ground.
What's your appraisal of the state of the American palate these days?
Oh, I think the American palate has really advanced in the last 20 years. I think most people that are over the age of 40, let's say, didn't have Chinese food growing up, didn't even have pizza growing up. Just even some of those sorts of things. It was really the American restaurant scene has evolved so dramatically from meat and potatoes, from mashed potatoes and gravy and open hot beef sandwiches and those kinds of things, hamburgers and fries, to now you see very common of course Chinese food has actually almost kind of run its course, and now it's more like Thai and Indian and from an Asian continent standpoint, and Italian and the Mediterranean foods are really prevalent today. So spice levels, young kids are after spice. I see youngsters putting our sriracha chili, our red
I had the Indonesian peanut saute today.
Yeah.
That's got a little kick to it as well.
That's one of our spiciest dishes, that and the Thai curry
Noodles in
soup.
Madison was very busy today. We're going to be right back. Please stay with us, okay?
This production of Wisconsin Reflections is produced by University Communications at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Consider this. There's a public university that consistently ranks among the top in the number of Peace Corps volunteers and in the number of graduates serving as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, whether they are leading corporations or changing the world. The next time you see people doing extraordinary things, they are probably Badgers. The University of Wisconsin-Madison. Forward thinking.
Hi, welcome back. We're with Aaron Kennedy, who is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin MBA program and the founder of Noodles Company. Aaron, you graduated from Augustana College. You grew up in a small farm, actually, in northern Illinois.
Right.
What brought you to Madison for the master's program, the MBA program?
Well, I was working 2 full-time jobs in Galena, Illinois. So I was working.
Beautiful town.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous town. Working 80 hours a week, and I really realized that if I was going to continue learning and growing, I was going to need to go get an MBA. So I started looking around at the alternatives: University of Illinois, Northwestern, and University of Wisconsin. And I went and visited those campuses, and I just fell in love with Madison right away. I mean, it's such a charming city. It has so much energy. The vibe here is really magnetic to me. I loved it at first sight, and the marketing department was really where I wanted to go. I wanted to go into consumer research or into consumer brand marketing, and the AC Nielsen program here is one of the premier, sort of Nielsen marketing research, one of the premier programs in the country. So they were willing to take me, and I said I'll be there. So.
How did your experience in the MBA program affect how you founded Noodles?
Well, my MBA program, they do a really great job here in graduate school of helping you get practical work experience while you're getting your MBA. I happen to be able to work at Kraft General Foods 20 hours a week during the school year, full-time in the summers, the entire time I was in Madison. So I had a really sort of exponential learning experience beyond just what you'd get sitting in a classroom. So when I came out of those two, the 2.5-year time period with the MBA program and the work experience, when Pepsi came here to interview, they offered one person a job, and it was me. And I was very fortunate to get that.
What a tremendous opportunity. So now you're running the Pepsi brand with an annual budget of?
Yeah, at that time, it was a $5.5 billion soft drink brand, just the Pepsi brand I was working on with the 2 other people as the brand team running the brand. We had a $300 million market advertising, just the media part of the budget. We spent $1 million to make each commercial, and that didn't include if we were, previous to my tenure there, they had hired Madonna and Michael Jackson, and that was all extra, over and above. So these were big budgets compared to, working at the newspaper in Galena,
How well
Illinois.
prepared were you?
I was exceedingly well prepared. I felt very comfortable there with the graduates from Wharton and Duke and Harvard, which is where Pepsi and most large consumer product companies recruited at that time in a lot of those big schools. But I was able to step right in and feel like I had all the skills necessary to be very successful, and was able to be.
As a Wisconsin alum myself, one of the things I'm most proud of is there's this public service announcement that comes on during the football and basketball games, and it says there's one school in America that regularly leads the country in number of CEOs and Peace Corps volunteers, and that's UW-Madison. Yeah. And the UW Business School has this knack of turning out CEOs, and the number of CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, Wisconsin is at or near the top every year, compared to the Northwesterns, Harvards, Whartons. Why is that, do you think? What is it about this business school and this campus that generates those type of leaders?
Right. Well, I think being a CEO is a responsibility that requires a very broad skill set. And I think the kind of students that choose to come to Madison are the kind that are really have diverse interests. They like theater as well as going to the football game. And that kind of skill set is more likely to work their way into the CEO seat, into that position, and to be more successful in that position, because you can relate to so many different kinds of people. Almost everybody out of an MBA program can relate to the CFO in the company, the financial person. But what about, the people who are actually making your product on the production line, or, whatever kind of business you're in? What about talking to them? What about having them feel like you understand them and care about them? And that takes a unique person with a unique background. I think there are a lot of those kind of people here in Madison.
Where'd you live on campus?
I lived on Breeze Terrace, underneath the shadow of the stadium, the Camp Randall football stadium. So
nice,
that was
quiet
really fun.
location.
Oh yeah, especially Saturday mornings when the band is up banging the drums and tooting the horns, getting warmed up at 7 in the morning.
So did you park cars in your front lawn?
We did a little bit of that, but we needed to leave room for tailgating. So we would have the big we have grills going, and we'd have a few beers here and there. We actually had Madison's famous for flamingos on Bascom Hill. The picture that a lot of people have seen. Well, we actually made a beer bong out of a flamingo, plastic flamingo. We cut the beak off, we cut the tail off, and we'd put some beer in there from a keg, and then you chug it. But the thing seemed endless. You didn't have any idea, because there's a lot of capacity in a...
Right, but you never overserved yourself.
Oh, of course not. I actually was only the server, and I would be very careful to make sure that
I'm glad to hear that.
People only had a 3-ounce portion.
We're going to let these business students fire a few questions at you next.
Good.
You cool with that?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Great. We're back with Aaron Kennedy, Noodles Company, chairman of the board. You're too young to be a chairman of the board.
Thank you. It's nice of you to say.
Hey everyone, we're back with Aaron Kennedy, the CEO, chairman of the board, and founder of Noodles Company, UW-Madison MBA grad, and now back working with the business school, and the winner of the first Entrepreneur Award that the business school has ever awarded. And we're going to get some questions from business students here in Madison for Aaron, and then obviously you guys will all do as well as Aaron has done. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Chris.
What's your question, Chris?
Yes, welcome back to Madison, by the way.
Thank you.
Aaron.
It's great to be here.
Great. I was wondering, how essential do you think earning an MBA is for somebody looking to begin their own business?
The education that the incremental focus that you give your MBA adds, I think, reduces the risk of failure and increases the odds of being successful. Those are kind of hand in hand. But I'd really couple that though with getting some real live work experience, because I definitely see people that are in undergraduate programs, and I speak to them frequently, and they are thinking about starting a business, and I just think it's so incredibly risky. It's possible. It's absolutely possible, but the odds of success are definitely higher. You get your MBA, get some real life work experience, and get as much out of that experience as you can. Take every opportunity to, when they raise their hand, when there's an assignment to be done or a project to do, raise your hand. Do it. Do everything you can to learn.
Do you have a bias towards hiring MBAs yourself for your top management positions?
I think we're still a relatively small entrepreneurial company. We're about $150 million in revenue. And so we have some positions where really we highly prefer having an MBA. But in the restaurant industry, it's not as common. So people that have worked their way up in the restaurant industry, there aren't as many of them that have the MBA, so it's a tougher search.
Another question for Aaron. You've got one. Hi, what's your name? Laura, what's your question?
I know it took a couple of years for Noodles to franchise, and so I was wondering what kind of considerations did you have when you made that decision? And now with all these different owners that you have, how do you maintain your brand equity?
Right. So the idea to franchise our business is different than expanding it and opening more locations. So I just want to clarify that first. We built and operated our first 100 restaurants by ourselves without any franchisees. And we did that consciously because we wanted to be able to control our customers' experiences in every one of those 100 restaurants. And we wanted to get ourselves well established, our food, our brand, our culture, really well defined before we introduced or brought somebody else into the family. So we made that decision to franchise primarily because franchisees were going to help us get into markets that we would probably not get into in the near future. So for instance, Champaign, Illinois, where there's another Big Ten school, it's out a long way from Chicago and other metropolitan areas, and it's tough for us as a corporation to run that restaurant there. So we brought a franchise operator in to run the restaurants in Champaign and in Bloomington Normal and some of those sort of more remote cities that we'd like to be in. So our objective, by the way, and speaking of the University of Illinois, is to get on every Big Ten campus, and we're on most of them today, and many of those with franchise operators. But still only 25 of our 160 restaurants are franchised. We're still running most of them ourselves, and we're going very slow with the franchising.
Thanks for the question. You've got a question.
Yes.
Stand up.
Hi, this is sort of a double-barreled question. If Noodles had failed, would you have gone on to, would you have tried to hand it something else? And the second barrel is, you're pretty young. Are you going to continue to be in Noodles, or are you going to step out and start, become a serial entrepreneur, try a hand at some other, maybe not food, maybe something else, maybe anything?
Right. It's a good thing I have my flak jacket on for this double-barrel question. If Noodles Company had failed, would I have tried something else? That's really difficult to say. I never allowed myself and really never felt like Noodles Company could fail. I was so determined, so obsessed with the idea that it came up with in August of 1993, so it's been a little over 14 years. But I certainly would have been more timid, and I might not have had the ability to raise capital to start a business. So even if I had wanted to, it might have been a challenge to do. I don't know, I've never thought about that before. That's kind of the best I can do on that one. The second barrel would be, am I going to be a serial entrepreneur and start another business? And I think it does kind of get into your blood. You're either, this is kind of either for you. I have this talk I do in front of, with graduate students and undergraduate students about entrepreneurship, and there are some traits that I think are critical for a person to have if they're going to be successful.
And let's find out about those traits. We're going to be right back with Aaron Kennedy, Noodles Company Chairman of the Board, and more questions from our UW-Madison business students.
More information about the show or to be in the audience for future tapings, go to www.wisconsinreflections.wisc.edu.
We're back from the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, an audience full of business students, and at home base here is Aaron Kennedy, the chairman of the board, founder of Noodles Company. How old were you when you founded Noodles?
Came up with the idea when I was 29 and started it when I was about 31.
And what was the one trait that you had that made you a good entrepreneur?
Courage.
Good. That's a good answer. You have a question. What's your name?
Yeah, Mike. I was wondering what your aha moment was. When did you decide, I'm going to start Noodles Company? And also, why noodles and not another food?
Right. Well, I was living in New York at the time, and I was walking down Hudson Street in the West Village, Greenwich Village, and I saw Marnie's Asian Noodle Shop. And I walked in this little humble, like diner almost looking place, and all they had were noodle dishes from around Southeast Asia. Very short menu though, about 10 things, but some were from Japan, Thailand, Korea, that sort of thing. I said, wow, what a great idea. But walking down the sidewalk to my house, the lightning bolt hit me that said people all over the world, not just in Southeast Asia, grew up eating pasta or noodles as a staple, as comfort food in their own home. So why not put all those things on one menu? And I was just obsessed with it ever since. So.
We got another question. Hi, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Noah.
What's your question, Noah?
I was wondering, we always hear about the importance of a good managing team. What are the sort of things that you did to make sure you had good people around you?
Right. Well, when you're starting a business, Noah, it's it's sort of catch can in the beginning. You're looking for talent, but you're also realize you have to do something specific at the time. In our business, people are lining up at the door to come in for lunch, and you need people to be working there. So, over time, we built leadership that had, initially in the young company, a very broad breadth of skills. So we'd have somebody that would, Ross Kamens, our executive chef, who would not only develop the menu, but he would coordinate the distribution and the sourcing of food and all that kind of thing. And over time, we brought in more specialists to really focus on things. So now Ross, as our executive chef, just develops the recipes and tells the story about the food, and other expertise comes in. So building that team, the one thing I would say that we always did is we always looked for character first. We always looked for the cultural fit. Person who really embodied the personality and the sort of the traits, the skill, and skills were second.
Aaron Kennedy, thank you so much for coming. And you know what? Everyone at Wisconsin is thrilled with what you've done. And it's great having you back on campus.
Well, it's been my pleasure.
Absolutely. And he's got a whole bunch of coupons for everyone here in the audience. Noodles for you, and noodles for you, and noodles for you. Anyhow, thanks for coming here.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Bravo.
The preceding program was produced by the University of Wisconsin in association with the Big Ten Network.